On this episode of Ham Nation, Gordo recaps the VHF contest, Randy continues building on his shack, and Amanda gets a surprise visitor with a promotion.
Ham Nation is brought to you from LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether they're working in the office or remote. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This episode of Ham Nation is brought to you by ICOM. For more information, visit icomamerica.com/hamnation.
This is Ham Nation, episode 458 for June 17th, 2020. Gordo's VHF Contest Propagation Report. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Ham Nation. I'm George, W5JDX. Bob Heil is not with us this week, but should be back soon. We do, however, have a couple of the usual suspects here. First, over on the left coast, it's Gordo. Gordo, I didn't work 6 meters over the weekend because my antenna just won't allow me to transmit there. But I heard a couple of stations in South Dakota and one in Mexico City, and I sure wished I could have gone back to them.
Wow, that was great, George. But George, even before 6 meters, did you get your transmitter out in the swamp back on the air? That's the big question.
I didn't get it back on the air until yesterday, and we'll talk about that a little bit later in the show tonight. I'll tell you what it was. Unexpected.
All right. Sounds great, George. Amanda, how are you from Gordo and George?
We're warm. We're warm here in Colorado, 92 degrees. And other than that, I had a fun time working the contest this weekend. I can't wait to tell you guys some of my stories. But other than that, we're doing great, Gordo.
Yep, our skywaves, as you'll see in a few moments, we're not really pounding into Colorado, but we knew you were there and we knew you were listening. I think I did make out a signal, and maybe you can determine who it is, or maybe they're around the shack somewhere. Is there a November 0 Echo Sierra Quebec with us tonight in zero?
Well, good evening.
Yeah, there he is, live and direct. Hi, Robert.
Hi.
Robert.
Hello to everybody in Ham Nation.
Well, good to see you. Robert is the new Colorado section manager. Boy, that's a big job, along with all your other jobs, huh, Robert?
Well, I keep the lights on by being a lawyer, but I have fun by being a ham radio operator.
Oh, that's great. Well, Amanda and I, we were on 6 meters, so was George, and most of the chat room were on the air. But you've got something very interesting happening in your section. First of all, congratulations on Robert's appointment as Colorado section manager. And I'll now turn it over to you for any other surprises you may bring us.
Well, I'm very honored to be here. And, I was a vice director for the Rocky Mountain Division. But when the opportunity came up to become the section manager in Colorado, I said, I can really have a more direct positive impact. I feel like I really love working with the amateurs here in Colorado. So I went to my director, Jeff, and said, Jeff, I'd like to step down as vice director because you can't be a vice director and a section manager at the same time under ARRL rules. And so he agreed with me. I stepped down. The president appointed Dan Grady to take his place, who's another great amateur, or to take my place. And then I stepped in as section manager on June 1st. And, one of the first things I did when I became the section EC almost 9 years ago is I built a key team. And it's funny that Amanda mentioned the fire at Royal Gorge, because do you remember field day that year, Amanda? That's the first time you and I had a face-to-face. Prior to that, she was just this young lady who called up and said, can I be a public information officer? And I said, well, I guess so. I don't know. Let's put it this way. It was love at first sight. Amanda has become my rock star. and helps out with everything here with the Amateur Radio Emergency Service. And so I felt I needed to put together a cabinet very quickly of some key advisors. And I know that Amanda has a passion for communicating with our amateur radio operators in Colorado and getting the message out, and tremendous enthusiasm. So I have asked Amanda to serve as an assistant section manager for the Colorado section, in charge of all communications, all of our social media, all of our web presence, everything. She is going to be the person in charge of that. That will also encompass all the public information coordinator duties. And I am just so pleased that she agreed to come on and serve in that capacity. She is a wonderful person. I also want to thank her husband, Jeff Carrier, for stepping up and be our technical coordinator. We're putting together a great group. We're going to breathe new life into Colorado amateur radio. We hope to double our ARRL membership in the next 2 to 3 years. And there's some exciting things happen. That one thing, Rick Roderick asked me if I'd stay on as a member of the board's legislative advocacy committee. We're working on some important issues there. And I was more than happy to agree to do that. I've been on some phone calls with Senate staff. We're still working very hard for the interests of all amateur radio operators. But I shot an email to Bob Heil, and he said, hey, you need to come on Ham Nation and tell us about it. So Amanda, thank you for stepping up. Thank Jeff on my behalf. And I'm looking forward to great things here in Colorado from you.
You guys, Robert, did you know that you were going to be on? Because I did not. They surprised me with this, and you guys have just shocked me to death. So I'm really happy that you're on this evening, and thank you so much for announcing this to all of our Ham Nation viewers. And you guys, I'm not. Robert's going to do an excellent job as a section manager here in Colorado, and his goals are no joke, but people like us are going to make it happen. And the second thing I wanted to say is that Robert has also done a significant, amazing job as our section emergency coordinator for the last years. And we'd like to thank you so much for your service as that as well. And he put together another excellent team to handle that while he's running the other part of the state. So thank you, Robert, so much. And I really look forward to serving you and every amateur radio operator in Colorado. And we're going to get the word out about the ARRL and get everyone involved as much as we can.
All right, great. Well, thanks for having me on Ham Nation tonight. I really appreciate it, and enjoy the show.
Well, thank you so much, Robert. And Amanda, congratulations on your new position. We are delighted and can't wait to hear more coming out of Colorado. Well, let's take a look and see where California and Oregon and Washington and Colorado were this past weekend. One thing for sure, I'm not sure we were on the map when it came to great DX on, let's say, 6 meters. But what the hey, there was even some 2-meter sporadic key contacts as well. So it was a fun weekend. So Amanda and Robert, thank you both for all your hard work. The American Radio Relay League, we hope every one of you are members of it, as we are a lifetime member here. Their QST right on time every month, top reading, and we can't wait to see how field day works out, because under the rules that allow a club to take part with individual club members a part, and yet their individual scores will be coming together as a club score. We think it's ingenious that the league was able to amend the rules for this 2020 field day and make things happen. So in 2 weeks, we're again going to hear you on the air. So Amanda, congratulations. And Robert, sir, N0ESQ, welcome to your new position as Colorado section manager. Well, this was the weekend of the VHF-UHF contest. So, Victor, if we could go ahead and start a little look. You hear that the contest had some great skip conditions, and everybody goes, well, yeah, good skip. Well, have you ever really examined what skip is, or how on 6 meters, which is relatively high for any skywave activity on a regular basis, we know that down in the troposphere, that's the air we breathe, where the airplanes fly, where the smog is, troposphere goes up to about 8 to 11 miles, and that is the lowest layer of our atmosphere and ionosphere. When you look at that, going up maybe 8 to 10 miles, the troposphere is well below our first energized layer, the D layer, and the D layer does a lot of absorption to the HF radio signals. The E layer, the E layer is there day or night, and the E layer played a very important part in the East Coast having some openings into Europe at the very beginning. Maybe even before the contest started, we understand it was pouring in. They're up at about 60 miles in the E layer, and the E layer would be in the stratosphere. As we go higher yet from the E layer to the F1 and the F2, that's the mesosphere. That's 30 to 50 miles, and it's between the stratosphere and the mesosphere that the E layer has some real magic that it does. And it all has to do with, we'll tell you in a minute. The International Space Station is well above this. The ISS is up at about 250 miles. So we're looking at troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, and then there's the thermosphere, and there's a bunch of them in addition to that, but all of them have an electron content that may refract, not reflect, but refract radio waves. So there's the stratosphere, there's the D layer, and in the E layer is this past contest's excitement for many of us, including Amanda, and George, where George was here in Mexico City. Wow. On 6 meters. That's pretty amazing. But all of the excitement was up there at the E layer. Now, Dr. Tamitha Skov, as you know, Dr. Tamitha always talks about the electron density. And, well, we sort of like the electron density in the E region because in the summer months it gets highly charged up. The F layer, of course, always has activity there, but the E region is low enough that when we get a bounce, it comes back down about 1,500 miles away. But what Tamitha always cautions about is when we've had solar activity that has added a tremendous amount of electrons in a patch. Now, this patch can be anywhere from the E layer on higher. And the reason she talks about the disturbances that could affect public safety personnel and emergency responders, as well as us hams, is that the International Space Station is not factoring in on this, but the Global Positioning System, the GPS chain, is. And while GPS does have two different bands that they transmit on, 1,200 and 1,500 megahertz, there's an added transmission delay to GPS signals when they go through one of these highly ionized electron masses up there in the ionosphere. So the ionosphere is not necessarily really affected by local clouds. That's going to happen down on the troposphere. And you see all the maps. That's the Hepburn report and some of the others. Nope, the ionosphere, no change there. However, every so often during huge solar activities, there are spurts of activity that jump way up from a maximum usable frequency of maybe 20 megahertz or 15 megahertz as high as 150 megahertz for just a few seconds. And that can be seen on this screen here. Again, where the bounce is taking place is well above where the aircraft are flying, although the aircraft certainly do fly through the troposphere, and a lot of lightning down on the troposphere can sometimes put a spritz up that will create an intense area of ionization that will do some amazing things to VHF and UHF signals. So when you see the clouds down at the shore, wherever, those puffy ones, no change. It's the little ones way above that are just barely seen, and they're way up in the stratosphere. They don't appear to be moving very much, and they're almost invisible. Those are the ones in that area where winds take place, and the winds are able to many times create some real excitement. Now, out at Quartz Fest, we saw that also, and that's Ray's unit, Ray with ICOM America. And again, we had those little light, very thin clouds up in the stratosphere that were creating some real conditions. And the real conditions we're talking about was this past weekend on VHF and UHF. May, June, July, and August, right in the middle of it, we're in the middle of it, is when sporadic E takes place. And sporadic E are highly charged layers up in the stratosphere and mesosphere that are influenced by winds. And the sporadic E, about 60 miles up, these patches are not real thick, only about a mile thick, but they could be about 100 miles across, and they look like horizontal sheets moving from west to east that we can observe. As they're moving, many times they are colliding, these winds, with debris from comets and asteroids and who knows what else from outer space, as we see here. And as they come in contact with this type of extra radiation from these comets, many times they will develop into thin clouds. The most prominent bands for these thin clouds to be refracted back about 1,500 miles and on a double hop up to 3,000 miles is the 6-meter band, and 50.125 is where all of us hang out for voice comms. And boy, last Saturday, we couldn't believe our ears when we were hearing and seeing what's going on 6 meters. 10 meters is also a very hot band for sporadic E. Well, first thing we discovered during the contest was everybody did a fabulous job of spacing themselves out 5 kilohertz. This is important because many of us will quickly scan using the multi-channel knob on our ICOM, Kenwood, Yaesu, or Alinka, or whose ever HF radio. And as we scan across there, it goes in 5 kilohertz steps. Every so often, we would miss a weak station right in between the 5 kilohertz step. But nonetheless, that's sort of our mode for seeing how the band activity is. Well, the neighbor called me over saying, well, I turned on 6 meters and I don't hear squat, but I do pick up strong signals throughout the band. It's not strong signals. He had a brand new audio system put in, and one of the components was driven by a wall wart, and we prowled around with a little receiver on 6 meters, and we finally found a wall wart that when we unplugged it, pooh, look at that. Blue sky. Well, it's showing that there's almost no noise now on the band. Begin to see signals. So again, folks, the new type of wall warts without the transformer, the switchers, they can create noise way up the band. Then another ham came over and says, Gordo, I cleaned up everything and I can't hear squat. And I said, well, what'd you clean up? He says, well, I took a wire brush to my ballon and I gave it a good cleaning. And I said, well, and why'd you do that? And he said, well, he had the coax seal around the outside. I wanted to get it off. So when I put it back on, I put it back on. I don't hear squat. Well, let me take a look. Oh, there you go. One of the metallic little bristles on the wire brush got onto the center conductor and the outside shell. He evidently had screwed it down as much as he could, and it shorted it out. So many times, if you've got problems, they're very easily fixed. He was going to send his rig in to get repaired. No, not the rig. So here we are with the sporadic E cloud. They're up about 60 miles. They're about a mile thick, about 100 miles across, and they are horizontal sheets moving, as we know it, from west to east on the top. But on the bottom side, there's a counterwind that goes from east to west. Now, you think, well, yeah, okay, I sort of got it. There's some friction going on there. So the first thing is, well, does the solar cycle and do sunspots influence sporadic E? The answer is not that they have concluded. We've looked at all sorts of things in the past on the internet, on some very good papers from W3ASK, the propagation editor of CQ magazine, Pat Dyer, WA5IYX. All of the studies show, nope, it's not solar activity that will create the E layer. What it is, and I know it's a little blurry, but that's good, are these two wind shears taking place up about 60 miles. And what occurs is the two wind shears will create, it's called the Lorentz force, and it's responsible for the concentration of the layer of electrons. And this scheme applies to the summer months right now, and its dominant trend is the eastward winds above, going from west to east, and the westward winds below. This thin composition of the zonal wind, it's possible that the accumulation of free electrons and the refraction of radio waves in the ionosphere is due to the big concentration of these free electrons. Just like when you rub a comb and put a piece of paper and it sort of sticks there, you know something's going on with charged particles. So it's the solar winds that everybody believes is one of the main reasons that we have patches of sporadic E clouds. Some folks say they can see them. They can see them in the high stratocumulus clouds. Others say they can actually hear the band ready to open by little noises. And next week, I'm going to play you one of those noises because next week, as you know, is field day. Well, the best way to tell what in the world is going on is at dxmaps.com. www.dxmaps.com. If it takes you more than 30 seconds to get registered with your call sign and your email address, it is so easy to get onto, and I encourage all of you, as we do, support them. You don't have to send them $100. They would love it. But send them $5, $3, whatever. But please support them because look what eMaps do. First of all, for those of us sleeping here on the West Coast, the East Coast on Saturday morning had long haul, probably F layer, the dark lines, all the way. Oh, well, look at this. This is on 6 meters all the way to Europe. I mean, multiple stations. Those in Europe with the red lines, those are on sporadic E. So not only were they getting the United States thousands of miles away, but they were getting their buddies in fellow countries 1,500 miles away simultaneously. Wow, what a Saturday morning, last Saturday morning. Well, you folks on the East Coast, you must have hogged it all for Amanda and Gordo. And yeah, George has got some down there as well. But the big concentration was right in the center of the big red mass. And again, this is coming from that website, and we'll show it to you again. And we sure hope you sponsor it. The big concentration was the E cloud, or maybe several of them, hovering over the Great Lakes. Actually, not the Great Lakes, but more toward the East Coast. And you could see call signs and see who worked who. Midday, it began to, and probably the cloud formation, the E clouds, being influenced by the lower elevation wind going from east to west. Now that cloud moved, and notice the East Coast is not hearing much at high noon, but those in the Midwest were getting everything. Yeah, but Amanda and Gordo, we didn't get squat. Well, George got a little bit down there. So we thought, wow, this is something. When we finally did get some skip, and they sometimes call it short skip or E sub S, we were hearing stations 1,500 miles away, 1,000 miles away, 800 miles away. The closer the E-skip gets to you on a bounce, the greater the likelihood that it will extend and refract signals as high as the 2-meter band. And those on 2 meters guard 144-200 upper sideband. And sure enough, There was a period right after lunch in Bango, Alpha Alpha 0 Mike Zulu, works W0 Papa Delta down in Texas. That's about that's a good path. That's probably 500 or 600 miles. And also there's another path up out of, looks like New Jersey, New York, way up to the lakes. That was also a path. But the biggie, of course, was that one that you see toward the left-hand side on 2 meters. And next week, we'll actually have some recordings, not of that one, but other 2 meters. Later on the afternoon, we finally got some evening sky waves. So where are the E-clouds? Well, I can tell you there's an E-cloud just to the east of the Bay Area, because that's where all of the signals are intersecting to get a bounce back to Earth. And for the East Coast, yeah, they were hogging them all. You folks had probably numerous E-clouds, but again, they are the ones that refract the signal, typically from 1,000 miles to 1,500 miles on the 6-meter band. Then we always like to keep an eye here on the West Coast of what's happening well to our west. And it looked like there was an E-cloud between the Far East, Japan, and Hawaii. And thanks to these DX maps, we're able to see it, and they're updated every 1 minute. And wow, look at this. Later on in the Sunday afternoon, Sunday afternoon, there's another Japanese station, Juliet Alpha 4, Foxtrot Sierra Hotel, working all the way to, looks like the Great Lakes. So really exciting conditions when it comes to sporadic E. Now, again, here's where you can see all of the different band activity. You don't even have to send them any money at all to be able to begin to see what a deluxe tracking software this is. www.dxmaps.com. And they have all the different bands, not just 6 meters, 222, 440, HF. They've got them all. So if you want a snapshot as to what's going on, then that's one of the many maps to take a look at and enjoy. So let me see if Amanda is there. Amanda, do you have a quick report on stations that you and Jeff may have worked this past weekend?
I do. I have a report and a failure to report. First of all, I saw Gordo on DX Maps. Guess who else I saw? Valerie in V9L. She was on there quite a bit, really working it hard. My biggest thing is that I chose to do phone all weekend long. That's what I wanted to do, and I probably had an utter failure because of that, because so many people were on FT8. And I really hope that they had fun. I just have not embraced it completely to go full on FT8. But I did. I made some really good contacts on Saturday. Actually, it was really open right before the contest started, Gordo. It just irks you so much when it's open. And then as soon as noon comes around, or 11 your time, nothing. It just closes on up and everything's skipping over you. The second thing was right on Sunday evening. I'm trying to fix dinner because I had to determine that the bands were dead. And that's as soon as they opened up. So that was my other kind of funny story is, honey, dinner's, hot transmitter, cold plates. I gotta work this. So I really enjoyed the opening right before the contest ended on Sunday evening as well. I did make quite a few good contacts in some grids I definitely didn't have before, including X-Ray Echo 2 X-Ray. I love having that guy on. I've worked him during our club contesting, but never worked him personally on my call sign. So it was nice to get him in the logs and get that grid. But I was defeated. I did not use FT8, and I think that's the way it's going, Gordo. I'm sure you agree. And but I did make some good 2-meter contacts. I might have had to beg all of my friends on our local repeaters to go to 5.2 and work me real quick, but I did make some good contacts there, which gives me some added bonus points. Over to you, Gordo.
Oh, that is great. Well, we did the same thing. We had John, KI6INN, and Joe, Golf Papa Foxtrot. They were operating 2 meters and 440, and they just worked up a storm. So there was really excitement for all on the different HF bands. And probably the most notable excitement was just hearing these stations. You could get a real feel for how they were doing. Some were real friendly and others were real friendly. In fact, everybody was friendly. I didn't hear anybody say, hey, this frequency's mine. No, it was fun. Now, yes, FT8 certainly probably worked 10 times more grids as us on sideband. But I'm all for the digital mode FT8, especially for exploring the propagation characteristics, because there are so many digital modes such as Whisper and the FT8 and all of the others that you can actually determine almost instantly where your signal is going. But FT8 reminds me of Zoom conferencing. On Zoom, everybody's muted. And when somebody does something funny or there's something interesting, you get that feedback, the and or the sigh or whatever. On FT8, it's just staring at a screen. And so all you FT8ers, God bless you, work every grid in the whole world, but I'll work just a few, and Amanda will work just a few, and we'll remember those contacts because each one usually has a story to tell. One fellow said he was so excited about hearing the band opening, he was coming to us out of, I believe, Oklahoma on a deep fringe television antenna. And he said it's pointed in the wrong direction, but he says it's probably not too directional, but he says you have a great signal. So just make sure and disconnect that antenna from the TV before you start pumping 20 watts into it. So Amanda, any last words before we let you go? And we're going to jump into an ad for ICOM, but any last words before you come back later on with the chat room? Amanda?
My thing is that I didn't see a lot on my waterfall on the 7610 here, and I thought the band was completely dead. And then I just kept going up and down and up and down. And I hear those voices, and I started calling CQ a few times, and people would hear me. And again, I never saw it on the waterfall. So don't always believe in that. Just see who can hear you. It's not a lost cause. Back to you, Gordo.
There you go, Amanda. All right, those in the chat room with questions regarding eSkip and so on, Amanda and I are sticking around. But let me tell you, the workhorse radio was this one over here, the ICOM 9100. And now you can see it. That workhorse radio did a fabulous job, but let's see what ICOM has when it comes to newer gear that I'm just going to salivate. So ICOM America, let her roll.
Get out and be active with ICOM's new IC705 and its optional multifunction backpack. The IC705 is your perfect QRP companion as you have base station features and functionality at the tips of your fingers and a portable package covering HF 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. This compact rig weighs in at 1 kilo or just over 2 pounds, with RF direct sampling for most of the HF band and IF sampling for frequencies above 25 megahertz. 5-watt battery operation with BP272 or 10 watts with a 13.8 volt DC supply. Modes include single sideband, CW, AM, FM, as well as full D-Star functions, a large 4.3-inch color touchscreen, and live band scope with waterfall, integrated GPS with antenna and GPS logger, micro SD card for data storage. It comes standard with the HM243 speaker microphone, and it supports QRP and QRP operations. The perfect accessory for the IC705 is the LC192 optional backpack with a special compartment for your IC705 and room for accessories for soda activations or just a day in the park. Visit ICOMAmerica.com/amateur for more information about this and all the great ICOM radios. ICOM invites you to enter weekly in the drawings for some great swag prizes like T-shirts and hats at icomamerica.com/HamNation. You'll learn also there how you could win in the monthly grand prize drawing for a free radio. And for June, that free radio is the ICOM IC2730A, a great VHF UHF dual band mobile. It does simultaneous receive of both VHF and UHF, or VHF VHF, or UHF UHF. And there are separate controls on each band there you can see on either side of the radio. Makes it very easy to operate. Large high contrast display, rugged, mill standard 810. Optional Bluetooth board is available as well, and there's free downloadable programming software. So go to icomamerica.com/HamNation after this and each episode of Ham Nation and register to win. And thanks, ICOM, for sponsoring Ham Nation. And that IC705 that we were just looking at there, the new QRP rig that we've kind of been teasing for several months now. Well, Ray has one. He's bringing it over for field day, and we're going to get a little closer look at an actual model there. The one we saw previously was a prototype, but this will be great to actually see one and get to use it on field day. So looking forward to that with Ray next week, or next weekend, actually. Well, we've got a video tonight. You know, we hadn't heard anything out of Randy K7AGE for a while, but he's back with another video now. I guess he's getting closer to getting his ham shack set up, because this looks like a nice project here. And if you got somebody who can cut wood, I think you're home free on it.
Hi, Randy, K7AGE. It's been a long time since I posted a video, so here's a simple video that I'm going to put together. No big camera, no wireless mic, shooting it all on my phone here. It's been a while. I've just been working on a lot of projects. I'm okay, no problems with the virus or anything like that. We've been staying home, wearing our masks when we go out and such. So I haven't been working on the antenna much recently. I've been doing a lot of other projects around the house and the yard. And I've started another project before finishing one. Oh, well. Anyway, this here is the beginning of a new radio shelf for my desk. I'm currently using the old wireframe shelf that I had when I was back in the rental house, but I want to get rid of that and go to something more permanent and with more space. So let's take a look at what I've got going here. So this is 3/4 inch cabinet grade plywood, nice smooth sides on both sides. And I had my contractor's cabinet maker guy cut all these for me. I don't have a table saw and wasn't ready to hump around a 4x8 sheet of plywood. And these are the plans I drew up in the drawing program in LibreOffice. So this is how it will all assemble together. The vertical pieces, the D and the H's, and the E's may be in different positions to work around the equipment. The H pieces are so I can put monitor mounts on those and get rid of the desk stands for the monitor if I desire. So this is kind of the layout showing some radios. Those are all to scale. Some I have, some I may get in the future. The radios will be on the desktop, so my arm is down low for tuning, and the monitors sit above them, and I can put the equipment all around the monitors as well as on the top shelf. And this was the layout of the plywood sheet for the cabinet guy to do all the cutting. You can see I didn't have much left over. And I even had a little spreadsheet showing all the sizes and the dimensions. And this is how I'm going to paint them. Red, like my workbench. So I think with the red shelving and the radios are typically black, I think that'll make a kind of an interesting layout. So the next plan of attack is that I'm actually going to work on assembling all this together so that when I get it up to the shack, I don't have to be drilling holes and stuff for the first time. And still going to decide whether or not to paint it disassembled or assembled. So I'm not going to show you all the steps here. This is just give you an overview of what's going on. Okay, I have it put together, and now that I have it physically put together, I'm going to do some changes here, or some additions. And right now it's sitting on the shelf, so the table will be at the bottom of the side supports there, and it's nearly 7 feet long, so it's pretty bouncy. So I'm going to put a center support here, and I'm going to cut that so it doesn't come out to the front. With my idea, when I have two computer monitors here, they'll be able to pull right together there in the center. And then I have a piece here I had cut, which can go underneath there. And what I'll do is take a piece like that, and probably when I cut it off there, and go on each side to support that. And so I can screw this one from the bottom up. So, and of course I can screw it from the top down. And I think that's going to work. It's pretty simple. Take a while to paint it all. Well, I have it all together. I think that'll work out nice. You know, I have the radios down in here. I have it sitting on these blocks because it's longer than my table here. But the radios will be underneath. Computer monitors up there. And it'll be nice. It'll be good. So that's all for now. Another video hopefully soon. I don't know. Again, you can follow me on Twitter. It's where I post a lot of stuff. And that's it. See you later. This is Randy, K7AGE.
And great looking ham shack desk there, Randy. Got a place for everything. So we'll be glad to see that once you've got it painted and installed and loaded up with gear, like the way you like to see your ham shacks. Well, I just had a few things I wanted to mention briefly tonight. Number one, the 50 kilowatt transmitter in the swamp. Remember, we talked last week. It was not working. I had some issues with it, and I thought they were down at what I call the doghouse. It's the antenna tuning unit. That actually is a box like this right here. Well, this is the actual box. That is out in the field, and fortunately, I went back yesterday, and it was dry, so no problems getting to it. But you can see that's pretty good-sized coils in there. That is a 100-watt light bulb up there on the left, just for scale there. So basically just a regular antenna tuner like you would have, with your HF station. Now, there's actually a couple of tuners in there. There's a smaller one over in the bottom right-hand corner. That's for the nighttime antenna and lower power. And let's take a little closer look here. This right there, right below that vacuum capacitor, there is an RF contactor. That's more or less an RF relay that will switch us back and forth between the 50 kilowatt transmitter and the nighttime transmitter, which is only 500 watts directional. And you can see there's a couple of solenoids there on the bottom that pull the levers back and forth to change the contact positions there, depending on which transmitter you wanted to put on the air. Well, I had one of those solenoids go bad before, and the contactor did not switch, and that was causing issues. I've also had the finger stock on that contactor burn out before, and of course that caused big issues. And I thought it was going to be something like that this time. Well, we went down to the doghouse and we had a look at it, and it was, there wasn't anything obviously wrong there on the 50 kilowatt matching network. Now, there's another little antenna switch near the bottom there, a contactor that is supposed to allow me to switch the backup transmitter, which will do up to 1 kilowatt. And but we normally run at 500 watts directional. Well, I can hit that other switch from the building, and it is supposed to throw it over and let us run the full 1,000 watts on just the one tower there, which is better than being directional during the day. As a backup, it's 1/50th of the normal power, but still gives you a little coverage. That was not working either, so that's why I was pretty convinced I couldn't get either transmitter to work on a single antenna. And so I was pretty sure that there was something at the doghouse. Well, actually, there was a problem with that smaller switch, and it was not switching. Whatever we did, it did not try to energize at all. So I've got to go back and investigate that. But the part I was interested in was the 50 kW side, and it looked okay. It switched normally. So went back up to the transmitter, looked around in there. It's a 50 kilowatt solid state. Fair size transmitter, not nearly as big as a tube type transmitter, but a lot of circuits in there. And, I've never worked on one just like this before. And I've had this one, the transmitter has got a few years on it. I've been taking care of it 4 years and never had to do anything to it before. So this was kind of new ground to me. And I called tech support and talked to them, gave them all my symptoms and my meter readings. And they pointed me in a particular direction to go looking, saying, well, maybe you don't have something tapped right on one of the transformers in there, on the B plus transformer in there. Well, there's 480 volts that come in there, so you got to be kind of careful when you're working on that. Well, I went in and looked to check that, and it all looked correct to me, and I figured it was because this thing had been running over a decade tapped the way it was now. So I decided, well, that's not it. So I just started looking around, and there are a lot of fuses in this particular cabinet that I was looking in. There's 3 cabinets side by side, and actually it's 2 cabinets. They're wider than a 19-inch rack. There are a lot of fuses in there, a lot of different size fuses, some, that plug in that look more or less like a house fuse. The big fuses on the wall back there for the 480 volt 3-phase is actually 200 amp fuses. And then there's some smaller fuses in there. There's one that runs the exciter that it's a 20 amp slow blow fuse, just a regular AGC fuse, and a fuse holder like you may be familiar with. Fuse holder like that right there. Well, something didn't look right. I could tell there's something a little discolored around that fuse holder. And I reached up there and I gave it a little twist, and it just kind of like crumbled in my hand. I found the problem. Apparently that fuse had been sitting there. Maybe it wasn't making good contact. I don't know what was wrong with it, but it had overheated and kind of destroyed the plastic on that fuse holder, and it was no longer conducting. So we weren't getting any drive to the power amplifiers on there, and that's what was keeping the 50 kW off. So you wouldn't think you'd need a 20 amp slow blow fuse for your exciter stage, but the exciter in this transmitter, I don't know how much it puts out, but apparently it's got some considerable power to it. Another thing I wanted to mention is last night we had our weekly amateur logic sound check net, and that's something we've been doing for a little over a couple of months now, and we'll probably continue doing it. It'll be on next week, I know. We've been having a good time there because it's probably the most connected repeater that you can find. And no, unfortunately, it's not shown on the amateurlogic.tv website. We need to make a post on there. But if you go to our Facebook page or you go to our Google I.O. groups, just search for Amateur Logic, all one word, or follow us on Twitter. you'll get the details of where and when that net is. It's every Tuesday night at 8 o'clock. I said most connections on a net. Well, yeah, Echolink. We had 3 different Echolink nodes that you could connect to. D-Star. We had a D-Star that you could connect to as well. DMR. We had 2 Brandmeister talk groups that you could use. We had Jesus System Fusion. We had a Wires X room. We had 2 RF repeaters here in central Mississippi that were kind of like the host of it, W5PPB-R. You could have just logged in right there on Echolink. We had 2 All-Star nodes. We had Ham Shack Hotline, which is a VoIP service for hams. That's free. You just use a little VoIP modem for that. We had NXDN and P25. I don't know of any other net anywhere that you can connect to in that many different ways. So a number of us had fun trying to see how many different modes we can connect in. And I myself, I got connected in 4 modes. I got in Echolink using the local repeater on RF, although I host the Echolink node here. I got in with D-Star using a hotspot, and I got in with DMR using the same hotspot. And I'm actually, I've got an account or a phone number on Ham Shack Hotline. So 4 different methods I was able to get in and check into the net. Unfortunately, my friend Email, the cheap old man, had 1 more mode up his sleeve than I did. So he got 5 different check-ins with different modes. But always a great time and a great set of people there. The net lasts about 2 hours, and it's probably unlike other nets that you would be familiar with. Just always a lot of fun, great time there. And our buddy Jeff, K8JTK, who incidentally is one of the net controls on the weekly Ham Nation D-Star net, was our net control for this net this week. He does it some weeks for us. We kind of rotate around net controls, and of course he did a great job on it. And a lot of those modes we just talked about, he was providing through some of his setup there. And at one of the D-Stars, one of the Echolinks, one of the Brandmeisters, and a number of the other modes. Is also Brad, N8PC, provided us with connectivity through his nodes as well and gave us some more connections there. And what I use locally, we saw this a few weeks ago. I talked about it, and seemed like a lot of you like seeing this. This is the N5BOX duplex hotspot. Now, I've got a new case here that I'm just putting on. My friend Tommy, N5ZNO, printed this for me. I just got it today. I've got to get me some screws to match it up now and get it in the case, and that project will be complete. But I have really enjoyed this hotspot. It has worked great. And let's see. I think that's all I had to talk about tonight. So we're going to get Amanda back and see what's going on in the chat room this week.
Oh, boy. George, I think the only thing you left out was P25.
Oh, it was there. I don't have it,
okay.
But yeah, we had P25.
Okay. Well, no, that's good. And I have to say this about Jeff, K8JTK. Thank you, Jeff, so much. You helped my Jeff out when he was having an issue with one of his hotspot or node issues. And I can't actually say what it was because I wasn't paying attention that closely, but I know that Jeff was the person to help him. So thanks
Amanda,
for that. What?
We left out one thing there because Don was not here with us tonight live. We almost forgot about Newsline. And, how could we do a show without catching up on the latest news in ham radio. I just don't know.
I'm gonna hear about this for the rest of my life. Don's gonna text me first thing in the morning and be like, I can't even believe you two left me out of this show. So go ahead, George, go ahead and introduce that and we'll scrap this whole thing.
Okay, take it away, Don.
From Amateur Radio Newsline Report number 2224, these are the Ham Nation headlines for Wednesday, June 17th, 2020. Our top story this week comes from The Sun, or rather it comes from Newsline science editor Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW, who has some encouraging news about the next solar cycle.
After nearly a decade of waiting for astronaut launches to return to American soil, SpaceX successfully launched astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley into orbit on the 30th of May, 2020. The flight, which lasted 19 hours in the newly christened Dragon ship Endeavour before it docked with the International Space Station, has quickly become known as the moment we ushered in a new era of human spaceflight. Not since 1969 have we seen a rocket launch this anticipated. But the astronauts were not the only ones making history. Just a day prior, our sun decided it was time to wake up from its long slumber and remind humanity to always check the weather before flying. The space weather, that is. With almost no warning, it launched the first two big solar flares of the new solar cycle on May 29th, 2020, less than 1 day before the launch. Welcome to Solar Cycle 25. Luckily for the astronauts, the sun's solar flare radio bursts only lasted for a few hours. And then, as if in anticipation, the sun quieted down for the final countdown. The rest, as they say, is history. Of course, most will remember this week as the moment we returned the power of human spaceflight to American soil. But amateur radio operators, with a nod and a wink, will always know that our sun celebrated right along with us in its own unique way. This is Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW, for Amateur Radio Newsline.
We have news of one more amateur radio casualty of the pandemic, this time in France.
The organisers of Ham Expo 2020 in France have called off the major amateur radio event in Le Mans. The French National Amateur Radio Society said the COVID-19 pandemic has made it unwise to proceed on schedule with the October 10th event. Instead, planning has already begun for next year's event at the Le Mans Exhibition Centre, which will take place on the 25th of September 2021. The president of the Association of French Transmitters Network, Jean-Louis Trouquet, F5DJL, said in the translation of a public posting, "We hope that you will understand this difficult decision, which is in keeping with our desire to protect the health of our community and yours." From Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Ed Durant, DD5LP.
In one U.S. city, the challenge of keeping life orderly during troubled times has been amplified and complicated for police because of one issue that is well known to radio amateurs: jamming.
Jamming is perhaps one of the most adversarial forces out there for ham radio operators. Now, one Midwestern city's police department is afflicted with the same problem. In the middle of the kind of explosive riots, looting, and protests that are rocking many of the cities around the United States. As Chicago police officers struggled to respond to dispatchers' emergency radio calls within the troubled city, jammers were filling the frequencies with music and slogans that interrupted communications, according to a report in the Chicago Sun-Times newspaper. Dan Casey, Deputy Director of Public Safety Information Technology in the Office of Emergency Management and Communications, said that although some police frequencies are encrypted, most officers' radios aren't protected from hacking, although the move in cities across the U.S. is to employ more secure digital radio systems. Casey told the newspaper that local and federal authorities were being given recordings of the transmissions. Jamming is illegal, and an accused jammer can face a substantial prison term if convicted. For Amateur Radio Newsline, I'm Kent Peterson, KC0 DGY.
And that's all from the Amateur Radio Newsline, your independent source for amateur radio news for 4 decades and counting at ARRNewsline.org. With Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW, Ed Durant, DD5LP, Kent Peterson, KC0 DGY, Kieran Eve Murray, KD2GUT at the news desk in New York, and our news team across the globe. I'm Don Wilbanks, AE5DW. 7-3. We'll see you next time here on Ham Nation. Now, here's the latest solar update from Dr. Tamitha Skov, WX6SWW.
Space weather this week is beginning to get a bit fun. As we switch to our front side sun, you can see region 2765 as it begins to rotate to the sun's west limb. Now, this region has not been all that active, but there has been a lot of other stuff going on in other places. As a matter of fact, on the 12th, you can see in the northern hemisphere this little puff of almost smoke with a little donut hole center in there. That actually was an Earth-directed solar storm. It's a stealthy solar storm. And then just a few hours later, we end up getting yet another one off of the sun's west limb. It was a prominence eruption, and that launched yet another solar storm. So on the front side of the sun, just within a day or so, we had 2 solar storms launched, one which is Earth-directed. Now, we also have a finger-like coronal hole that's going to be rotating into the Earth strike zone, and it's going to be sending us some fast solar wind on the heels of that stealthy solar storm that's already on its way, and we could get some aurora easily at high latitudes and possibly down into mid latitudes for just a little bit. And now as we switch to our far side sun, this is stereo A, and it's looking at the sun pretty much from the side. You can see up around the 12th to the 13th, there's another in the northern hemisphere, another puff of smoke. Oh my goodness, this one launched sandwiched between the other 2 I showed you on the front side of the sun. So we have 3 solar storms that have been launched by the sun. It's beginning to feel like solar cycle 25 is coming alive. And now we also have 2 bright regions in the northern hemisphere that are beginning to rotate into stereo's view. These regions are not flare active, but they will rotate into Earth view here in the next couple days. And the fact that they're going to boost that solar flux is good for emergency radio operators, but the fact that they're flare quiet means that's good for space traffic. Now, switching to our coronagraphs, this is from stereo's view, and what we've done is we've blocked out the sun so that we can see those solar storms in the solar atmosphere as they lift off. Now, you can see on the 12th, you can see that first solar storm being launched going Earth side. Now, that was the stealthy solar storm that launched. Then right behind it, look at this big one that's launched on the far side. Oh my goodness, and then yet another wispy one on the front side. So it's almost as if we're back to our good old sun. It is definitely waking up when we see 3 solar storms launched within literally hours of one another, and it's a nice sign that solar cycle 25 has definitely begun. For more details on this week's space weather, including when that stealthy solar storm might hit Earth and how it could affect you, come check out my channel or see me at spaceweatherwoman.com.
Thank you, Dr. T, so much. We always appreciate her reports, and I know y'all love her. And don't forget to check out spaceweatherwoman.com and also find her on Twitter because that's her most important outlet. She keeps us updated always, and I don't think the woman sleeps, honestly. She's constantly on Twitter letting us know what's going on, and she loves to hear your reports. You out there that can see the auroras and things like that, make sure you let her know about it. All right, one other thank you I have to mention is WTWW. Thank you so much, Ted Randall and group, for always having us on every Wednesday night. And you can check us out there on shortwave on 5085, I do believe. So thank you guys so much. All right, let's go into some questions. And Dawn, really, seriously, like we were going to skip you, but the other people told us that we had to include you. All right.
Amanda?
Yes, George.
Just one thing I wanted to mention there. I was talking with Ted this past week, and they are carrying Ham Nation on Saturday nights now when they're mixing it in with the other ham programming that they carry on the shortwave station there. So it's not live on Wednesday nights now, but it is played back on Saturday nights, in addition to a lot of other great amateur radio content on there.
That's good to know. Thank you, George, for that update. And I did not know that. Duly noted. And I might make mention of that on our Facebook page on Ham Nation on twit.tv. If you guys don't follow us on Facebook, that's where you're going to find out most updated information about what we're going to have on our shows and things like that. So, all right, let's talk shop here, you guys. We got Gordo, and we got George. So this is a question from ZL Land, and this is a good question. Kevin wants to know, ZL1KFM, he says, I have an 80-meter closed horizontal loop at 7.5 meters above ground. He has 4 poles. In the process of doing some work and just wondering if the feed point is changed to another corner, will it make it directional or does it not matter? He doesn't really see anything about that online. Gordo, you first.
Amanda, that's an interesting question, and it depends how he is feeding that loop antenna and whether or not the loop antenna is terminated at a specific feed point spot for a certain impedance, or is it off to one of the sides?
Okay, so Kev, give us some more information in the chat room about that, and we might go back to Gordo on that. Next, let's talk about field day. We're all making changes for field day, right? So, George, I'm going to assume, do you have Tommy in the gang? You guys are going to do some good field day operations?
Yeah, sort of an abbreviated gang, and we're not going to do, what we've done in years past where we go out in the woods and pitch a tent and stay there for the weekend and operate field day. Obviously, with the social distancing we all need to be doing these days, that won't work out. So right now, the only plan, and we don't have exactly plans where we're going to do it, but Ray is going to come over from Texas and bring that IC705 with him, that great little QRP rig, which will set up real quick, along with a number of portable antenna choices. And Tommy and I will probably take some of our rigs too, and we're going to set up somewhere outdoors where we can kind of separate there a little bit and operate field day and shoot a little bit of video as well. So all is not lost. We will be doing field day, but without the air-conditioned tent, we don't know what it's going to be like this year. It could get warm.
Oh, man. And those bugs. Gordo, I know we're going to talk about this a whole lot more next week, but give us a short breakdown of what you guys are going to be doing.
We're going to be van mobile, part of an emergency group, but not part of the emergency group during the activity, but after when we look at our scores. So listen for us, portable 6, mobile.
Okay. I look forward to listening for that. I'll go ahead and talk about now with my new role as a public information coordinator and assistant section manager. I'm taking more of a public role. So we're going to be kind of hosting a whole day of Zoom. We're just going to have the Zoom room open the whole time, and we're going to invite all of our Colorado clubs to join in. And I'm really kind of looking forward to this just so we can, if you don't have a group setting, and you're still looking for educational points, we're going to be doing an educational thing on the hour, every hour. So whether it be teaching you how to send a traffic message or safety or a multitude of things, that's what we're looking forward to doing. And again, I'm also looking forward to having all of our Colorado clubs join us. And I will also be on site at a field day location, but yes, the social distancing thing. And this is going to be so hard, you guys, because I always love to run up to everyone and hug them and all that good stuff. And it's going to be hard to not do that. But we still get good food. So we've got that going for us. All right. Well, that's all the questions I had for this evening. I'm going to go over the nets for this evening. We have our digital nets. We have 14 Charlie for D-Star and DMR on 31012. And we have 20 meters on 14268, thereabouts. I have not seen that verified in the chat yet, so apologize about that. And our 40-meter net has been canceled this evening as our net control, Kevin, KC7FPF could not join us this evening. So if you want to, just join around 7192 and you can say hello to each other. Other than that, that's all I've got. So, George, you wrapping it up this evening?
I'll split it with you, Amanda and Gordo.
Okay.
We can all wrap it up here. Great show tonight, as usual. Although we didn't have Bob and Don with us, we did manage to get through it. and a little tails from the transmitter side as well behind me there. So all in all, I think we got through it unscathed and got some great information. And Amanda, congratulations on your appointment there. Gordo and I are both excited about that. I know Bob and Don are as well.
I am shocked. How did you guys get Robert on without me knowing? You didn't put it in the doc or anything. I had no idea. You guys blew me away. Was it Gordo? Thank you so much. He said, Amanda, we got to have you on at the beginning of the show. We're going to wrap up how the VHF contest did. And he really roped me, and like you shocked me, Gordo. Thank you so much. It was a pleasant surprise.
Well, that is great, Amanda, and you've earned the honor to work with the American Radio Relay League in your position. It's going to be super. And yes, we had one question come in that I received, and they said, well, how big is that E-layer patch? And we've heard it anywhere from 100 miles up at 60 miles up to 100 feet. So you never know, and the shorter the opening, the smaller the patch, and the closer in that your first skywave comes back to via E-skip, when it gets down to about 100 miles on 6 meters, time to be thinking of 2 meters, because usually when it's that intense and that short skip, 2 is usually open. Even FM if you don't have 2 sideband. But more about that next week. Get ready for Field Day, 2 weeks away.
Okay. Well, thanks for that info, Gordo. Yeah, it's going to be fun, although it's going to be different. That's okay. You know, we need to try different things and expand the hobby a little bit in modes that we can operate. Well, join us again here next Wednesday at the same time on live.twit.tv for the next Ham Nation. And I don't know what we're doing yet, but I can guarantee it's going to be fun. And we might even talk a little more. Maybe somebody will have a few more field day tips for us. So that could come in handy in how we're going to do things differently this year. All right, 7-3, and we'll see you next week.
One more thing I'd like to say is Happy Father's Day to everyone out there, all of our viewers who are dads. Happy Father's Day, and I hope you enjoy your day and safely and all that good stuff. Stay off the radio. Enjoy your family.
Oh, that is great, Amanda. Well, I have to go feed the kids. Kitty, 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 kitty.
Hi, I'm Jason Howell, host of All About Android, where each week I'm joined by Ron Richards, Florence Ion, and a rotating crew of Android journalists, developers, and enthusiasts, where we talk about the latest news, hardware, and apps for the Android faithful. You can subscribe by going to twit.tv/AAA or find the show in your podcatcher of choice. That's All About Android.